So this is Monday morning, and it's time to go to the massive door leading to the mansion, the houses Pat+JUDE, and rap sharply on it. How are you this morning, Pat? Are you open the door?
I'm grand. Jude, I want to give the latest weather forecast. I think winter's definitely on its way. But what was it yesterday? Rain, wind, and it's not that much better today. By the way, I was looking out the window, and one of my cats out there has got himself a wee mouse. And by God, see, cats are cruel. The poor wee mouse tried to get away about 10 times. I'm not fond of cats. Anything that kills, enjoys killing is not my type of animal.
You always were a big softy, Pat. You always part of the underdog or the underdog.
I'm always, yeah. No, if I hadn't got the poor wee mouse, I would let the poor wee thing go. Yeah.
And it probably would have dragged out the rest of his existence in acute pain, crawling through the grass for hours.
Aye, right. Aye, hold on, I'll get the van and drive over it, right?
Okay, we have lots of serious stuff to talk about, and my voice is hoarse today because I've been working so hard at these pieces we're going to talk about that I've hardly got the strength to talk about them. Anyway, there was one that caught my eye in the Irish News, I think it was, and it was very good. It was Jerry Carroll, the People Before Profit guy, is one of many that Stormont is not closing down, not falling down. That the in the restaurant is falling, and there's all sorts of areas cordoned off because it's leaking and so on. And he says there's a certain irony in this kind of thing. I think he's suggesting. Does he suggest there that it'd be a good idea to move elsewhere? I actually think it would be a good idea.
He does say, and he says as well that maybe it'd be better put the use where somebody would actually use it. But Jude, I remember the first time I had never been to Stormont until I became editor of the Dairy Journal, and I was invited up to something. And Jude, I was coming along driving somewhere in Belfast, wherever the hell the part of Belfast Stormont is in. And the next thing I looked up and I saw Stormont, and I have to admit, I was absolutely gobsmacked. That was the last thing I was expecting. This big building on the hill. It was almost, what was it? Hitler used to build these super structures to impress everybody. Mussolini, I think they're the same.
Yeah.
Jeez, I looked up and I said, good, merciful, well, whatever. And I remember thinking, that is the biggest building I've ever seen in my life. And, up on the hill, there was a message, there was a building that was sending a message.
Oh, absolutely. Mussolini style stuff. We're here and we're here to stay. And we're looking down literally on you. And if you mess, you're in trouble. I really don't. I mean, at the time the assembly was set up, there was talk about, I remember, I think Martin McGuinness was saying that we'd be better to take somewhere than Stormont because Stormont had too much history attached to it. I would tend to agree with him. But these guys wanted, it's far too big for a start. Far too big for a small 6-county statelet. But it's dear to the hearts of unionists. Anyway, I do think it's kind of funny that there's beginning to spring leaks. But the same thing, of course, applies in Westminster. They're scared stiff that, the rise of the water and so on, the increased amount of rain, they're afraid that that'll seep through Westminster and it'll vanish eventually.
By the way, you're sounding exactly like Jim Allister. Jesus, that's...
Stop. I'm much better than them.
Dublin had the same. The Dáil had that. Remember, they had to move out of the Dáil. First of all, there was leaks. A couple of years back. They went.
Oh yes, that's right. They went to some centre. What was it? The Point.
Some centre that was costing them something like 25,000 a day or something.
Oh,
anyway, they also remember there was an infestation of rodents. I think there were somebody said maybe that's the human kind. But anyway, I think some minister woke up or was speaking one day when he noticed a rat. Now, so because the canals and all that sort of stuff, well, not the canals, but the rivers and all the rest. So anyway, Parliament buildings in London, Belfast, and Dublin are now I think the Dáil, I think it's all finished, but I think the work that was of considerable cost. But anyway, Jerry Carroll of the People Before Profit is basically saying it's leaking, it's not fit for purpose, and considering the fact that none of the politicians are sitting there, maybe it's time we had a look at it. What could be done with it? to make it
Yeah.
of more value.
You ever look at the difference between, say, Westminster and Stormont, as opposed to the Scottish Parliament, or even I think the Welsh Parliament?
Yeah.
As far as I know now, I'm open to correction, and certainly in Europe, you don't have two rows, one facing the other. You have, a section of seating is for the government and another section for another party and so on. So I think that's quite important. I think space talks. If you organize things, you can make people feel there's us and them. On the other hand, if you have people together, you have a sense that, look, we're trying to work on this thing together. I really do believe that that's important. And Stormont, as you say, in its exterior and in its interior, is, screaming at people, we're in charge, pitch battles.
But remember the time you made that's a very good point. We know that space speaks. Remember when Gerry Adams and Paisley, the announcement that they'd come to an agreement. Remember, they didn't want to be sitting opposite each other. I think they put the desk on a V shape, an inverted V. So they didn't have to sit beside each other. But there was no such thing as one's dominant and the other isn't.
Well, I think it was. I don't know, of course. Well, I do actually. I'm pretty certain that was Paisley insisted on that. I don't think Gerry Adams had any problem sitting beside him.
No. But but neither side was going to let the other sort of be dominant.
Aye, but there was a danger. I think there's a danger there that where we talk about these things. For example, that instance with Paisley and Adams, we talk about these things one side as bad as the other. I actually don't think that was the case. I think Gerry Adams would have sat beside Ian Paisley with no bother.
But
because Paisley, make sure he isn't sitting beside them, then everybody said, all the same.
Yeah. Paisley was trying to send out a message to his people, I have not sold out.
I might have sold out, but I haven't sold out, obviously. Okay. Let's look at Fergal Sharkey and Lough Neagh. We were talking about Lough Neagh last Friday, and there's been a lot of coverage in the press since then. And Fergal Sharkey, as I think we said at the time, is a very strong advocate for the cleaning up of British rivers and so on. But he's from Derry, and I read a really good quotation from him this morning. He says, how to make Lough Neagh the largest cesspit in the United Kingdom? Easy. Ask Northern Ireland Agricultural Minister Edwin Poots, the man who changed the rules so that farmers who repeatedly and negligently broke pollution laws can have their fines capped at 15% of the previous levels. Yeah, apparently put that up on social media. I think it'd be wrong to attribute all the pollution of Lough Neagh to Edwin Poots alone, but he clearly is looking after his constituency. And essentially, if you don't hit people hard, they're not going to change their ways. If their cattle went down there and drank and so on and crapped all over the place, you're not going to change that, except you've got a good reason to change it. If you give them a little slap on the wrist, they're not going to change it. So I take Sharkey's point. Sharkey's a very good. Have you seen him performing on TV or anything, Pat? Or
have I? I've heard him on the radio. I was driving along one day and I think it was on Radio 4. He was very good.
Was there a break? Incidentally, this is sort of a side issue, but was there a sort of a rupture between him and the rest of the Undertones? Because when they reformed,
as far as I know, they reformed, and there was a guy called Paul McClune took over Sharkey's role. Apparently, Sharkey was not interested in reprising his role as lead singer for some reason. Maybe he thought he was making, remember he brought out a record, A Good Heart Is Hard to Find, and got to #1. So maybe he thought he could make it as a solo. I don't know. I know a couple of no, one of the Undertones, Mickey, but I haven't talked to him.
Bradley, yeah. Well, any of them I ever knew were nice. I don't know Fergal Sharkey, but
Mickey Bradley's a
really nice guy. That's for sure. Anyway, do you think
when you're talking about Poots there, Jude?
Yeah.
Like the reality is, it's worth repeating that thing in Lough Neagh. I think a lot of people, when it comes to the matters of environment, they think it's going to be somebody else's problem, not there. Yeah. But hey, Lough Neagh is a really serious. But Jude, there's another thing as well. And there's a fella I used to work with, Dr. Peter Dorn. Peter's a member of the Green Party, and he's also involved in the big time in the environmental movement. I think he lectures at Queen's University. I'm not 100% certain where he lectures. Anyway,
Yeah.
he sent me this thing. Apparently, they've been taking sand for years
Yes.
from Lough Neagh, and that apparently is causing the silt at the bottom and all this sort of stuff. And he says that is a major issue too. But Jude, quite recently I was down about literally 2 miles from where I am, and I saw farmers cleaning out their slurry tanks at the side of a river. I'm going, Jesus Christ, Jude, what the hell do they think they're going to do? Putting in chemicals and muck and all the rest of it. So, and by the way, there's a big green algae on the top, a scum-like surface on the top of the one. I was saying, what are these people doing?
Well, you see, I think there's two things there. One is nobody's stopping them doing it. There's not there aren't people there to say, don't do that or I'll arrest you. And of course, then just keep on doing it. If they're going to be slapped on the wrist with a small fine, then they don't care about that either. So if you've been doing things that way forever, you're not going to change. Like when we were young, people threw everything into the river, old bikes and tires. And if you wanted to drown some kittens, you'd put them in a bag. And I know what's happened about our house, and you just throw them, weigh it down and throw it in the river. So there was no sense that the river was anything but a sort of a reservoir that would accept and somehow chew up all the pollution you were firing into it. Those times have changed. And I'll tell you something, Pat. I kind of despise some politicians. I really do. Now, again, if I was in their shoes, it might be different. They, I suppose, have to make a living and they don't want to lose their seat. But it seems to me that there are any number of politicians, and you mentioned that Green Party guy, who know that things that are being done, like the pollution of Lough Neagh, are wrong. Wrong. No ifs and buts. That it should be stopped immediately, and there should be an effort to recreate whatever its original condition was. But they won't do it. They won't do it because they think it'll maybe lose them votes. I think that's the case where I suppose people with courage and leadership will enter in. And at the moment, I don't see that. The Green Party in the South isn't very big. The Green Party in the North virtually doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, I'll stand up for Peter Doran. Peter is very much, I think Peter would quite willingly sacrifice a lot. He's very much a committed environmentalist. But the thing about it, Jude, is I think, we're leaving a lot of, all right, I'll use the word, we're leaving a lot of shit for those who are coming after us.
Oh, yeah.
Jude, even our, without boring everybody, even the climate for this last couple of, right. Before we went off to Spain, I counted, Jude, we had heavy rain for 28 days in a row. Like, I don't ever remember that in my child, in August. I genuinely don't.
Yeah.
It seems our climate has changed totally. And like even this last 48 hours, I live up on quite a height, yet there was plenty of water lying around our house because it was almost torrential. Like, it wasn't particularly heavy rain, but it was non-stop rain. It lasted, like, I'd say 15 hours, just rains continually.
I think it's short-term thinking on the part of politicians, maybe. They figure, I want elected next time around. I want elected next time around. That's enough for me. I'm not going to have wider visions than that. The fact of the matter is, if this was a war, if there was somebody attacking Ireland or attacking Britain, people would put up with all sorts of privation. They would accept that they had to be in their houses at a certain time. They'd accept there'd be a shortage of certain foods, all sorts of hardship, because they know there's a war on. And yet we're faced with the biggest bloody war you can think of virtually. And that is the fact that Mother Nature is getting screwed. And as you say, there'll be I don't know how we're going to leave the planet in the condition it should be to our children and grandchildren.
Absolutely.
Are those people crazy, Pat, or what is it? Politicians and
I remember being told by a politician very cynically, he says the first rule of every politician is to get re-elected. The first priority. And most politicians are not willing to take a stand because they know principle goes out the window. I think it's the priority is staying in power.
Why do you think people don't elect more Green candidates then? Because most people see that things are going to pieces.
Put it, have you ever get on the social media and see the vehemence and the, what would you say, the abuse people like Eamon Ryan and Southgate, Looney Tune, liberal lefty, all this sort of stuff, he doesn't know what he's talking about, he'll ruin our economy. You should, it's almost as if the sort of the environment doesn't count. As somebody says, you can't eat money. See, when the last fish dies and the land is gone, can we, whoever's got 6 billion in the bank, will they be able to eat that money?
A little good to. Maybe we should just move from that to you're talking about Looney Tunes. I got an email today, and I sent you a copy of it from a man. I don't know what his name was, but it was very long and very detailed, and I skimmed through it. But essentially, what he seemed to be saying was that immigrants were going to wreck Ireland and the world. Would that be right? Would that be your summation? What he was saying?
Yeah. Well, Jude, years ago, I met this guy. He would have been of the old Anglo-Irish, and he told me he had lived in Rhodesia or Zimbabwe, as it is now. And he told me black people could never rule themselves. And his daughter was absolutely appalled. He says, my daughter doesn't agree with this, but that's the reality of it. He says, because they're all
well, were you not brought up with that, Pat? Were you not brought up with something of the same thing under a mild form?
Really? No, not to that extent. Like, when I look at, here's the thing. And I look at probably the biggest heroes of mine is Nelson Mandela, black man. Martin Luther King, black man. Gandhi, of color, of whatever, brown man. Most of my heroes have not been white, so I don't buy this sort of thing. But to move on, I scanned over what you sent me. Dude, the guy basically seems to be saying that Muslims, if they come into a community, they stay, at the end of their days, they're still Muslim. He gave an example, if I read it correctly, where he was teaching somewhere, and it was a sort of an international school, and he says 3 Dutch kids knew more about John Major's thing about the European Parliament than the 3 English kids. So we asked the 3 English kids, and they was chatting to their parents, and the parents says, "Oh no, we're Pakistani who happen to be living in England. We're not English." So he says basically they don't change. They might be living there, but they keep their culture and they keep their faith. And in fact, they insist after a while that other people adjust to them, not they adjust to the people, the native people. And that was the premise, I think, of his argument.
Well, I think I would disagree with him. For a start, I would say if you look at footballers, there's any number of black footballers and brown footballers and all sorts of different coloured non-white footballers. And it's once they open their mouth and once they start talking about things, you immediately see these guys are virtually 100% English. In Ireland, you'll see now the athletes, more and more of them are black athletes. And when they open their mouth, they're talking with a Tala accent. I don't think, I know that I was listening to a Radio 4 program, and they were saying that there was a huge number of cities like Birmingham, like London, like Leicester, and so on, that now have a very large non-white population. In fact, they might even have said that London at present is whites are a minority, that the other colours are dominant. Now, my question I'd ask then is, so what? There's this, we talked about this earlier, but there's this replacement theory. I only discovered this replacement theory that there is a kind of a worldwide conspiracy to push out the white man, make him the minority, and then sort of rule the world. Now, you mentioned Muslims there. Muslims, obviously there are some Muslims who have done terrible things, I guess, in the name of Allah, whether it's chopping people up in London or whether it's, I don't know, where they involved. Was that a Muslim attack on the Twin Towers?
Yeah. Allegedly.
So you've got all these, I'm sure there are very bad people among them, but you also have huge numbers. I mean, they've got mosques in Dublin, palatial mosques. And these guys going in and out of there don't look to me like guys who are warlike or who want to do bad things to white people. I'm very fearful that because we see people quite different from us, we assume therefore they've got something against us and they're going to sort of do bad things to us. I think some
Dude,
change in our society is a good thing.
yeah, I did a bit of work with a migrant center in Derry, and I met quite a few Muslims there. Some of them were the loveliest people. Dude, I'm working on the basis. Not all Catholics are lovely people. Not all Protestants are lovely people. Not all Muslims I would expect to be lovely. Not all Hindus. Not all Sikhs. There's going to be people, do bad things and all that. But that's generalization. There are a couple of Muslims I met in Derry that you couldn't have met nicer people. No, they would help you out. They would do things and all that. They're entitled to their religious beliefs. Now, the only thing I would think that, see, if you come into a society, you're quite entitled to hold on to your religion, your culture. But I don't think you're entitled to expect that people who are native to change to suit you. I think you have to make the effort to change to suit them. The onus is on you. That's the only proviso I would have. Now, not to give up anything, but
what do you think then of there? How would they say Muslims? How would Muslims?
Well, your man's. I remember reading a thing that was supposed to be allegedly from an Australian Prime Minister. I think it was a woman. She was the first woman Prime Minister, where she said, people are more than willing to come in here. They're more than willing to get our jobs and go to use our education and our health system. But if they don't want to adjust to being Australian, they've also got the right to leave. But I think she was saying, look, as we are a certain kind of society, if you come in here, you have to sort of blend in with us. Don't expect the people here to blend in with you. And I think that's reasonable, Jude. I don't think that's totally unfair.
That reminds me of one time I was in Bristol and I got a taxi from the airport into it was a BBC actually, and the guy started talking. I don't know how it came up, but the guy started talking about immigrants, and he said, "I don't mind immigrants, but I tell you, when they come here, they better dress like English people. They better eat the same food as English people. They better talk the same way as English people, English language. This is England,
yeah.
And they conform." That really worries me. That really worries me because Canada now. No. When I was in Canada, they talked. The way they talked about America as a melting pot of races. I remember in Canada they made an emphasis something different. They talked about a mosaic, so that each particular ethnic group would have its own identity, but still be there alongside others. I really like that. I think that's got a great deal to be said for it. And again, I think I'd be loath to say you've got to change. Like, you've got to observe the highway code, and you can't and you have to pay your taxes and so on. But those are very basic things. Other superficial things like how they eat or how they live or the kind of worship they engage in, I would say that's fine, absolutely fine.
Yeah. No, Jude, I didn't mean that we should take anything away from them. But what I meant to say is that they shouldn't demand that we start living like them. That's what I'm sort of saying.
What do you think of this great replacement theory then? That says that these guys are out there and they say
it came up a lot during Trump. These Proud Boys and all these things.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard it until during the Trump era, and they have this thing about the deep state and replacement theory that the white man is on a one-way ticket out.
And this is a conspiracy, a deliberate conspiracy.
It's a conspiracy. I think it was by QAnon. They were that the white race is under threat, etc., etc., etc. And Jude, it's so easy. Conspiracy theory. You think about conspiracy theories. All you need is a grain of truth, and then everybody jumps on it and says, "Oh, that's a fact." Dude, like for instance, yesterday, I stopped after about 5 minutes. I said, "Why am I wasting?" This guy made this allegations about Ukrainians about coming over here and just lying on their backsides and all the rest of it. Right, Jude, I've met a few Ukrainians, and without question, all they want to do is go back home. The vast majority of people in Donegal from Ukraine are women and children. And the other side of the story is, he said the war was no big deal. I thought, no. Now, can you tell me how many died? Can you how many civilian targets have been hit and all the rest? See, some people have a sort of almost a racist agenda, and of course, then he says that it's a low intensity war. I'd love to know where he's getting these facts. Where's the peer review of how many people have died? And he was making allegations that they were all sitting around taking money and all the rest, without a single supporting fact to back it up.
At present, there are far right groups in Ireland. Like we had that only 2 weeks ago. I said the Dáil, where they were violent, and essentially they were saying that white people in the Republic of Ireland would be in a minority. Hold on a second, I've just missed a thing. Would be in a minority, and I was thinking to myself, how would I feel if the majority of people in Ireland were non-white? I'd like to think that I wouldn't feel that something bad had happened, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't know if I've got the kind of tolerance that would be called for. What about you? How would you feel about
that? Come on, Jude, that would be a massive upheaval for us.
Yeah, but it could happen. I mean, it could happen. It could happen.
But it's not going to happen tomorrow. Jude,
but if I'm just saying a hypothesis, possible, Pat.
I know, but I agree. I know what the point you're making, but evolution, like it's like going bald. It doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years.
Not in my case.
Well, anyway, but the evolution of society. It's not going to happen tomorrow. I think it'll take a non-Irish majority in this country. It'll probably take about 200 years.
Yeah, that's true. Another thing I was thinking about this replacement theory, that the whites are going to be replaced. I was thinking, so up to now, how have the whites been doing in terms of the way they treated other races? My God,
Jude, the white man, like I would love to turn around, go look what the Belgians done in the Congo, cut the hands of kids when their parents didn't. The biggest mass murder. Look at Adolf Hitler. Look at Mussolini. Look at Britain's role in Africa and India. The white man's burden. Jude, the white man hasn't done us any favors. Look at the some of the things that are even going on to this day.
Yeah. So it maybe be worthwhile giving the people who do let them have a run at it for a couple of centuries.
See if you can do better.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting near the time to stop, but the Irish News. I read an article and I sent it to you. This time, not just as a link, but anyway. It refers to two things. Apparently, the Irish News has got a makeover and it's got a really crisp, fresh, new masthead.
This morning, I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either. I think I've seen it, but I don't see any difference in it in the old one. Anyway, along with that, they quote how they, in 1891 or something, in an editorial, were all for Ireland ruling itself and stuff. Maria, as they say in Irish. But they do urge what I have been urging. They've obviously been listening to me and you talking, Pat. I said it's time we had a citizens' assembly about a poll about a united Ireland. They're now saying that that's what the Southern government should do. Is that a significant move, do you think, or a statement from them?
Look here. I always think first, or say something, then think. Right, here's what I should do it the reverse. You have been saying we need a citizens' assembly for well over a year, maybe a couple of years. Right, that's the first thing. Secondly, I don't understand why the reluctance of people like Micheál Martin to hold one, because I think he knows he's going to get an answer that he doesn't want. And thirdly, if we are serious about where we go from here, we do need a citizens' assembly to get a handle on what people want, what the issues are going to be, and to use your term, where do we find a roadmap that takes us to the next level? But the last thing we want is a Brexit type where the divisions are still so deep that they don't know whether they're do a shit share or shave type thing. I think that's this type of thing. And if we had a clear vision of where we go, there's a much better chance that what we try to do will succeed.
Aye, of course. Yeah, I mean, we have the lesson to learn from Brexit. But at the moment, there's you and me and the Irish News. Why are Sinn Féin not constantly making that refrain and talking about a citizens' assembly? Why are all the Ireland's Future group not resoundingly saying we want a citizens' assembly? Because if you had those voices united, that would pressure the government into doing something. The Dublin government.
I write a column for the Daily Mirror, I know you just said something there that on my last couple of lines, I said, yeah, I made the exact same point you're after. Why are Sinn Féin being so quiet? Now, they're making all the right noises when they want Stormont back, but Jude, there's no street protests. There are no placards outside Stormont demanding the return. And remember the Napoleon's famous one, never interrupt your opponent while he's making a mistake. I think Sinn Féin are sitting back and saying, the DUP and the loyalists are doing a job for us. Jude, the old, I'm repeating myself and repeating myself, but the old mantra of the old Republicans was make this place ungovernable. And this place is now ungovernable. Steve Baker made a point the other way that Jude went on, and I made this point in my article that almost went under the radar. No, the Northern Ireland minister, he said, if unions still want to be in the union, they had better get a government up and run. Jude, that was an amazing thing to say. That wasn't really like this is a sitting minister warning him about the future of the union, and it was hardly reported.
Yeah, I think that's true. I said earlier, why isn't Sinn Féin, for example, shouting about a citizens' assembly? But I mean, if I stop and think for a minute, the reason they aren't is that they don't want to frighten the horses. In the South, the people have been taught that, Sinn Féin are really the IRA, they're wedded to violence, and blah, 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 blah. They've nothing on their mind in Ireland, which is going to screw things up, and we'll have a hostile unionist couple of million. Yeah. But so I think that's probably the reason that they're going soft pedal on it. On the other hand, I'm convinced that when and if they get into power, they will make that their number one or one of their very top priorities. I mean, if they don't, I think they'll be finished as a party. Everybody wants, houses, and everybody wants education, everyone wants health. But, that Sinn Féin has made their name over the centuries because it's an all-Ireland party and it wants a republic.
Yeah.
So,
the raison d'etre of Sinn Féin always has been Irish unity.
Yeah, that's right. So there's sort of self-peddling on it now, I think, a wee bit, because they don't feel that would be good news. I mean, the average guy looking for a house is looking for a house. And after he's got a house, he'll then maybe think about things like getting ahead in Ireland.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's us nearly finished, Pat. Well, not finished. Just that's the latest installment. So, any wise parting words to give before you
by the way, hold on. Before we go, but Ireland's magnificent one against South Africa. Oh, that's right. We Ireland beat the world champions. Glad to see we're top at one thing.
Pat, will I tell you how interested I am in rugby? My son was on the phone to me yesterday, and I said, how are Ireland doing? He says, in what? The rugby? And he says, it was yesterday. How did they get on? Oh, they won.
No, I sat and watched it. It was a great game, and it was edge of the seat stuff. But anyway, we beat the world champions, and the old Irish defeatist mindset's definitely gone. There's a confidence in our nation that is reflected now, even in our rugby team. When we go out, it used to be we were beaten before we went out in the pasture because we had this mentality, where we Ireland we're going to get beaten. Not anymore. There's a sort of confidence now. You too, what do you call it? River dance. All the Irish soccer team, now the rugby team. There's a sort of now, where there's a sort of a, what would you say, an acceptance of we're not the whooping boys anymore.
I actually think that the fact that they've done so well, I mean, beating the world champions in rugby, is 99% down to the fact that they play Ireland's call before the games. Would you not agree?
That's cynical note. Bollocks. Right, Jed.
Okay, Matt. Talk to you again. Thank you.